Hi, today our subject is time and memory. I'll get into that in just a second. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you very much for your M.R. James conclusions to The Haunted Doll's House. I was very impressed by them. It was great to see your writing. I'm looking forward to more of your writing. I really think that you innovated and improved the tale, and I saw 6 different versions and 6 different twists and what you did, so very well done. Today, this topic is a lot more conceptual than the others that we've been dealing with. This isn't a history or a survey of time and memory or about really how they work in a physical sense, but how they work in the astral sense, how they work in the ghost story specifically. Ghosts are notoriously late. Their time is past, and they get dated quickly. This may be their biggest problem, the tip-off that they are indeed ghosts. We've already broached outdatedness as a feature of ghosts. There's also belatedness, and that phrase I think that we're all familiar with, the late so-and-so. There is their time, and then there is our time. And sometimes these run parallel, sometimes they intersect. And that's what we are going to discuss today. Michael Cox said, if you remember, where Gothic fiction has been romantically remote in its settings and often flamboyantly atemporal, ghost stories anchored themselves firmly in the contemporary or near contemporary here and now. The increasing pace of material change did not extinguish supernatural fiction. It was, on the contrary, a prerequisite for its development. So that is by way of reassurance that the contemporary is a very good place for the ghost, that they kind of ride along with us in the continuum. So they're in existence in the 21st century, and there is nothing to worry about. They are not fading anytime soon. Why stay contemporary? The good reason for it, when you write a ghost story, rather than to take on those antiquated settings of M.R. James, is this. Not a few 20th century ghost stories have deliberately cultivated a retrospective ambiance that, on the face of it at least, has far less contemporary appeal than the visceral impact of horror fiction or the escapist possibilities of fantasy. So you want that visceral impact, actually, even if this isn't horror. One place to go with time is the way the modern consciousness works, where we are aware of different kinds of people, different kinds of situations juxtaposed. That is, for some reason, especially a 20th century phenomenon. It did exist before that, especially in literature. But suddenly, people had a whole new awareness of difference and closeness of those differences. This is from James Wood, How to Write Fiction. From here, it's a small leap to this insistence, familiar to modern war reporting, that the awful and the regular will be noticed at the same time, by the fictional hero or by the writer, and that in some way there is no important difference between the two experiences. All detail is somewhat numbing and strikes the traumatized voyeur in the same way. So because we start with trauma, that's our baseline, things can be kind of jumbled up and placed next to each other that wouldn't have been in another century. On to parallels, which lead us to the two planes that exist, one on top of the other, and this leads to drawing likenesses, to seeing doubles, and also to points of intersection. On points of intersection, on relationships between past and present, for instance, and all the connections that happen when sort of ghosts line up. They shadow certain people. William James said, and this is the brother of Henry James, stories we will start to read next week. He was a psychologist and philosopher at the start of the 20th century. There are innumerable kinds of connection and that special things have with other special things, and the ensemble of any one of these connections forms one sort of system by which things are conjoined. Human efforts are daily unifying the world more and more in definite, systematic ways. We found colonial, postal, consular, commercial systems, all the parts of which obey definite influences that propagate themselves within the system, but not to facts outside of it. The result is innumerable little hangings together of the world's parts within the large hanging together. Little worlds, not only of discourses, but of operation within the wider universe. So, worlds within worlds, if you can keep that in mind. Our intellect has been much interested in disjunctive as it is conjunctive relations. Philosophy would have equally successfully celebrated the disunion. The world is full of partial stories that run parallel to one another, beginning and ending at odd times. They mutually interlace and interfere at points, but we cannot unify them completely in our minds. In following your life history, I must temporarily turn my attention from my own. Even a biographer of twins would have to press them alternately upon his reader's attention. And so that's a statement on how lives diverge from each other, and we become aware of that. On to another aspect of this subject, which is dream time. And often ghosts sort of appear in that dreamy moment. Freud actually took that, the dreams, and equated them with the subconscious. And we are going to look at that a little bit next week with the uncanny. For right now, I just thought I'd introduce Pascal, who knows if this other life in which we think we are awake is not another sleep, a little different from the first, from which we awaken when we think we are asleep. And that is on the whole nature of reality. Are we dreaming? Are we living? What's going on with the ghosts? Where are they in this? Are they dreaming? Are they living? Who's got the firm foundation in the actual? Another thought, which is the relationship between time and space. This may be the most profound kind of summing up of all the topics this week. Edith Wharton from Writing Fiction. Ghosts, to make themselves manifest, require two conditions abhorrent to the modern mind: silence and continuity. Mr. Osbert Sitwell informed us the other day that ghosts went out when electricity came in, but surely this is to misapprehend the nature of the ghostly. What drives ghosts away is not the apodistra or the electric cooker. I can imagine them more wistfully haunting a mean house in a dull street than the battlement castle with its boring stage properties. What the ghost really needs is not echoing passages and hidden doors behind tapestries, but only continuity and silence. For where a ghost has once appeared, it seems to hanker to appear again, and it obviously prefers the silent hours when at last the wireless has ceased to jazz. These hours, prophetically called small, are in fact continually growing smaller. And even if a few diviners keep their wands, the ghosts may after all succumb first to the impossibility of finding standing room in a roaring and discontinuous universe. So, Wharton presents a problem actually to us right now. Where is the silence and continuity that is the requirement for a ghost to appear? Are those spaces still around, or times? Are they the same thing? What she starts to say is that these hours for silence are getting smaller and smaller. So the ghosts sort of have to fit around that. Where do they go? So I'll leave that question up to you as far as the spaces that you find for them when they are crowded out and by all the noise and by all the people. Ghosts live in memory. You are going to read two stories which deal with this, which is the Atkinson piece and the Tim O'Brien piece, or actually they're optional, but I would definitely recommend them. For the ghost should never be allowed to forget that his only chance of survival is in the tales of those who have encountered him, whether actually or imaginatively, and perhaps preferably the latter. It is luckier for a ghost to be vividly imagined than duly experienced. And nobody knows better than a ghost how hard it is to put him or her into words shadowy yet transparent enough. What Wharton is saying there is that when we remember someone, that's how, your character remembers someone, that's how the ghost comes to life again. So that's very important to keep in mind, that memory is sort of the activation often for for ghosts. Either they're manifesting outside or they're manifesting in the head of the rememberer. This is John Gardner, and I'll leave you with this today. This is on the theory of the fictional dream and how the way that he wrote about the art of fiction really implies the ghost story and achieving that dream state in your writing. It is a good place to note a few technical implications of the fact that whatever the genre may be, fiction does its work by creating a dream in the reader's mind. We may observe first that if the effect of the dream is to be powerful, the dream must be probably vivid and continuous. Vivid because if we are not quite clear about what it is that we're dreaming, who and where the characters are, what it is that they're doing or trying to do and why, our emotions and judgments must be confused, dissipated, or blocked. And continuous because a repeatedly interrupted flow of action must necessarily have less force than an action directly carried through from its beginning to its conclusion. Insofar as a general rule is persuasive, it suggests that one of the chief mistakes of a writer that can make is to allow or force the reader's mind to be distracted even momentarily from the fictional dream. So with all of that, I launch you into this week. Enjoy the exercises, and we're receiving 3 short stories, and we'll start critiquing those. So good luck, and I hope it's interesting. Thank you.